Objective. After listening to this module, you'll be able to identify the extent to which we can change our brain and the way we think. Brain plasticity. Did you know the human brain consumes the largest portion of total energy generated in the body? It consumes 20% of energy despite the fact that it represents only 2% of our total body weight. Similarly, your brain uses 20% of the total oxygen and blood in your body. When you learn something new, the structure of your brain changes. When awake, the brain produces enough electricity to power a small light bulb. Violent homes have the same effect on children's brains as combat does on soldiers' brains. New brain connections are created every time you form a memory. The brain is truly an amazing organ, and the most influential organ in terms of managing stress because stress originates in the brain. What is it? So what is brain plasticity? Brain plasticity or neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to change throughout life. The brain has the amazing ability to reorganize itself by forming new connections between brain cells or neurons. Neural connections can be forged and refined or weakened and severed. Changes in the physical brain manifest as changes in our abilities. For example, each time we learn a new dance step, it reflects a change in our physical brains. New quote-unquote wires or neural pathways that give instructions to our bodies on how to perform the step. Each time we forget someone's name, it also reflects brain change. Wires that once connected to the memory have been degraded or even severed. As these examples show, changes in the brain can result in improved skills, such as a new dance step, or a weakening of skills, such as a forgotten name. Stress in the brain. As you know, most organs are adversely affected by chronic stress. Your brain is no exception. Dr. Cheryl Conrad, professor of psychology at Arizona State University, has studied how stress influences brain plasticity. Results of her research indicate that chronic stress has significant negative consequences on brain plasticity and resilience. Reduced brain plasticity may be a factor in depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, and even Alzheimer's disease. By studying stress and neuroplasticity, Dr. Conrad hopes to uncover how we become resilient. Brain regions respond differently to stress. The hippocampus, which is part of the limbic system and intimately involved in learning and memory, is very sensitive to stress. Dr. Conrad looked at individual hippocampal neurons and found that chronic stress resulted in the retraction and actual shrinking of what are called dendritic arbors, which are the receiving end of information for neurons. What's the problem with this? Well, the problem is the hippocampus is involved in shutting down the stress response. So under chronic stress, the hippocampus contributes to a never-ending cycle of stress responses in the body. So the body is constantly going through the stress response to an extent. Also, a chronically stressed person will acquire an adversive event faster than a non-stressed individual. For example, a soldier with PTSD is under severe stress and exposed to a traumatic experience such as a friend getting killed. Back in the States, whenever a car backfires, the veteran reacts violently. With therapy, the veteran might show less and less responses to the backfiring of a vehicle. But then the next day, in another place, when a vehicle backfires, the veteran could react strongly again. The good news is the detrimental effects from chronic stress on the hippocampus show evidence of recovery when the stress experience ends. This neuroplasticity suggests that our brains have the capability to recover well from stress. Cortisol and the brain. Neuroscientists have discovered how chronic stress and cortisol can actually damage the brain. A new study reconfirms the importance of maintaining healthy brain structure and connectivity by reducing chronic stress. Neuroscientists at the University of California, Berkeley have found that chronic stress triggers long-term changes in brain structure and function. Their findings might explain why young people who are exposed to chronic stress early in life are prone to mental problems such as anxiety and mood disorders later in life, as well as learning difficulties. White matter. It has long been established that stress-related illnesses such as post-traumatic stress disorder trigger changes in brain structure, including differences in the volume of gray matter versus white matter, as well as the size and connectivity of the amygdala. Researchers are just beginning to understand exactly how chronic stress creates long-lasting changes in brain structure, which affect how the brain functions. The gray matter of the brain is responsible for the brain's higher functions, such as thinking, computing, and decision making. Being exposed to prolonged stress results in too much white matter in some of the areas of the brain. A quick note about cortisol. Cortisol can trigger stem cells to malfunction. Cortisol is believed to create a domino effect that hardwires pathways between the hippocampus and amygdala in a way that might create a vicious cycle by creating a brain that becomes predisposed to be in a constant state of fight or flight. Chronic stress has the ability to flip a switch in stem cells that turns them into a type of cell that inhibits connections to the prefrontal cortex, which would improve learning and memory, and is linked to anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Regular physical activity and meditation are two effective ways to reduce stress and lower cortisol. Although the study doesn't focus on the benefits of reducing cortisol, other research suggests that making lifestyle choices that reduce stress and lower cortisol can improve brain structure and connectivity. Daniela Koffer is conducting experiments to determine how stress in infancy affects the brain's white matter and whether chronic early life stress decreases resilience later in life. Dr. Koffer concludes that moderate or good stress, such as studying hard for an exam, can build stronger circuitry and a more resilient brain. That said, the structure of your brain is constantly undergoing changes through plasticity. Mindset, behavior, and chronic stress are never fixed. The power of neuroplasticity makes it possible to change brain structure and function throughout your lifespan. You can consistently make daily choices that will improve the structure and connectivity of your brain. Key points. Chronic stress affects the structure of the brain, which affects its functioning. The best way to have a healthy brain is to manage stress. And that's it.